Hello guys, I'm back from another video and I'm really sorry that I didn't really make a video last time because I was sort of like busy with some stuff, mostly with my work at, school, which by the way, hell. So by the way, anyway, continuing on with the episode, so in the last video of What If Deku was in RWBY, well, it was pretty much, some normal stuff, like for example, how Izuku was told about, how this world works, or at least how the maiden powers work, and also a story about the two brothers, which apparently are basically the two gods, which were the god of destruction and the god of creation. And after a bit of that, they would be told, or at least, Izuku would tell them that they should probably go to another village. And apparently, this village is known as Korogiri. And this village was also the home of where Izuku, Nora, and finally Ren used to live in. Until the Fire Nation attacked. No, not the Fire Nation, I meant the Grims. I mean, sort of. Anyway, continue on. But after that, they would start leaving to go to that specific village. Unbeknownst to them, at least. But when we go to another, perspective, where we see, Oscar, which I still don't really have a name for him, or at least a name for her, because in this world she's a girl. So yeah, as while she was basically moving towards, a different area, she would meet up with a man by the name of, Mr. Fuxon over there, aka, what's his face, Hazel. And after meeting him and also talking about some stuff, and also talking about how she's going to, to Haven to basically become a huntress, and after a bit of more talking, the train would finally arrive, and after that they would start leaving to go to Haven. Back to Izuku and the others, as after arriving at, at Korogiri, Izuku would recognize the place, including, his two childhood friends. And after looking around in nostalgia and also a bit of crying, they would hear the sound of, fighting, or at least not really fighting, but more like the sound of, attacking, as we go to another perspective as again. So, yeah, in this case, we see the aftermath of the battle between him, Crow, and also, Tyrion. As Tyrion is basically crying out how he's, how his tail is basically just kaput, and also how he basically, got defeated by them. Well, let's just say, Salem was not too happy, and would basically, knock him to the ground, saying that he was useless. And after saying so, he would decide to vent his frustration on a poor little Grim that decided to just, try and attack him. Let's just say it's currently being tortured right now. And after arriving back to Izuku and the rest of the others would notice a weird-looking Grim. A Grim that resembled a centaur if the centaur had, still had, the horse head. And apparently, that was the same Grim that caused all of the madness back in, back when the fire started. And so, all three of them would decide to get their revenge. And so, they would start fighting it. Sorry about that, wait for a second. And so, that is where, and after a bit of, fighting the Necrolobby, which is apparently the name of the Grim specifically, they would defeat it once and for all, as Izuku would activate his new, his new weapon. In this case, the Sword of Nunoboko, which, by the way, when I first saw the Sword of Nunoboko when I was first watching Naruto, I was just going how the fuck is that a sword? It's more like, something that you would bash somebody in the head with. But either way, after doing so, Ren would bring out a knife, or a dagger in this case. And this dagger actually belonged to his father. And so, he would stab the Grim, killing it once and for all. And after doing so, they would hear the sound of, airships, and these airships would decide to basically try and, bring them towards a different area. And so, in this case, Haven. And so, after doing so, they would start, going inside the ship, and they would start getting some rest. And so, all of them would instantly fall asleep. As we go to another perspective, in this case, with RWBY, RWBY, gang, not Skyla. I mean, Skyla is basically dead, so, Dove, and finally Rachel, as all four of them are currently at, I guess you see the Xiaolong household, as all of them are currently still mourning the death of their, friend, and also, Yang is still, a bit, annoyed because of her arm, or at least the lack thereof. As after a while, and a few things happen, like for example, how, one of them specifically, a certain man by the name of, not really man, but more like, woman, in this case General Ironwood, giving her old, her old arm, or at least her old, prosthetic arm. And after being given so, she would decide to use it, or at least reluctantly. I mean, at first she didn't want it, mostly because she still felt fear after the little fight between her and, Adam, aka Mr. Dickhead over there. Actually, more like Brandon Head than anything else. But either way, after, after, a few days of basically just, keeping it away, and also seeing her father basically talking to, her old teachers back at Beacon, aka Professor Port, and also, Dr. Bublik, she would decide to, do it instead. So, after trying out the arm and also going into her style, she would start training with, with her dad to at least become stronger, and even try to, help her friends, or at least her new friends at least. And so, after a few days of doing so, she would basically start getting ready to leave, but before she can, a few people, specifically RWBY, Rachel, and also Dove, would decide to basically join her. And so they would start leaving to go to Haven, because that's apparently where Izuku was basically going to, including the others. And so that's where we basically ended off the episode. And so, let us talk about what happens next, ladies and gents. So, we go to a, different perspective. Again. In this case, Weiss. As we currently see Weiss basically doing her own thing, mostly doing some work on her, on her desk. As she would sigh, as she would say this. I wish Izuku was here, she would say. As after saying that, she would hear the sound of some noise. As after looking so, and after looking, she would see her butler. I think his name was Clive or something, I can't remember, so I'm just gonna call him Clive. Yeah, I'm just gonna call him Clive. I was about to say, what's his name? Yeah, Alfred for a second, but I'll just call him Clive for now. As he would say this, Miss Schnee, he would say. As she would say this, oh, hey Clive, she would say. As he would say this, well, your father wants to see you, he would say. As she would say this, seriously, she would say. As after saying that to herself, she would say this, fine, I'll go, she would say. As after saying so, she would start leaving to go to her father. As she would start walking, walking through the halls of, of the large building with a solemn look. As she would say this, nope, the rest of you guys are okay, she would say. As she would say this, knowing you, Yang. I wish I could have saved you, she would say. As after saying so, she would start to hear the sound of, walking towards her. And this something, at least this someone, was her brother, Whiteley. And when I first saw this, I thought, when I first heard of, Whiteley in the, in the show, I just thought, wait, I didn't know that, that Weiss really had a brother, or at least really had, a freaking brother for some odd reason. I thought it was just, her and also, Winter. No, nobody else. And then I heard about Whiteley. And, oh boy, I absolutely hate the bastard. God, I really want to shoot him right in the head. Actually, I would basically want to, Spartan kick him right into, a pit of, angry fondness. Actually, no. Instead, a literal, pit of, crestworm. Oh, God. And if you don't know what are crestworms, well, go to Fate. You'll probably don't want to know about that, especially if it comes to Soccer Story. Anyway, continue on. As Whiteley would say this, and by the way, I think his name was Whiteley. If it's the wrong name for him, then just comment down below. But either way, he would say this. Ah, it's been a while, my useless sister, he would say. As she would say this. Oh, hello there, Whiteley, she would say. As he would say this. It seems that you're not really excited all that much to see Father. What happened? Were you perhaps, well, a bit worried about your little reputation back in Vale? Actually, it would not make sense for you, especially with your uselessness, he would say. She would say this. Like I said, I'm going to be leaving, she would say. He would say this. Sure, try not to disappoint the family every time when you walk, he would say. After saying that, she would start clenching her fist. And after doing so, she would just sigh as she would say this. I just wish I could kick his ass, she would say. After saying that, she would finally arrive at her father's place, or at least her father's office. In this case, Mr. Justus de Malloy. No, not de Malloy. But Justus, Schnee. Or Justus, Schnee or whatever. Every time I hear his name, I just think of, Justus de Malloy from, Fate Grand Order. Thanks, Fate. But either way, after knocking on the door, she would hear the sound of, fighting. More specifically, a woman fighting, wait for a second. More specifically, a woman fighting her, her father. After opening the door, she would see General Ironwood, or Jane Ironwood, aka Punching Mommy. Oh, god damn it. But either way, she would just be, well, outright basically yelling at, at Justus. We're gonna be pausing for a second, wait for a second, as General Ironwood would say this. Like I said, this is kind of pretty much an important thing, especially with all of the dust that's currently being taken away by a certain group of individuals, she would say. Justus would say this. But how about my money? My damn... she would say this. Shut up! You know that will cause a war, right? She would say. After saying that, he would say this. He would just be growling a little bit. After noticing, well, Weiss, General Ironwood would say this. Oh, hello there, Miss Weiss, he would say. Miss Schnee, she would say. She would say this. Hello there, Mr. Ironwood, she would say. He would say this. Chi. Oh, I was just finishing up talking with your father, to say the least. And, by the way, you better be careful, especially with all of the recent activities with the White Fang, he would say. She would say. After saying that, she would get out of the room. After doing so, she would leave. Just gets to say this. How annoying, he would say. She would say this. Father, what happened? He would say this. Well, it seems there's going to be a dust embargo. Apparently, ever since the attack between us and, the attack on Beacon by the White Fang and also this brand new group of individuals, which we don't really have a name for them yet, but still, we sort of had to, cut our dust away for now, he would say. And it's starting to piss me off. You know how much money that's going to cost us, he would say, she would say this. I see, she would say, after saying that, he would just sigh as he would say this. Either way, he would say, you start looking at her, he would say this. He would just sigh as he would say this. Weiss, he would say. She would say this. Yes, father, she would say. He would say this. I'm gonna be having a little fundraising event. And this fundraising event is for Beacon. And I want you to sing there, he would say. She would say this. Sure, father, she would say. He would say this. But not only that, this is also going to be an important thing for you. Not only because you're one of the survivors of the little Beacon attack, it's going to be a pretty good selling point, he would say. After saying so, she would say this. Sure, father, she would say. He would say this. And besides, it will be a great selling point. And not only that, it will make our reputation even more greater, he would say. And also, he would say, she would say this. Yes, father, she would say. He would say this. I heard that you're friends with the so-called three-eyed demon, he would say. She would say this. You mean Mizuku Midoriya, she would say. He would say this. Yes, I've been wanting to meet him. I've heard that he's quite powerful, especially with those with this special semblance of his. It's quite interesting. The ability to use 3 different eyes that are able to use powers even greater than a normal semblance, he would say. As he would start thinking, as he would say this. I know. How about you try and seduce him, he would say. As she would say this. Wait, what? She would say. As he would say this. Think about it. You and him. You're, a Schnee. A top-of-the-line Schnee, he would say. And him. The currently most strongest huntsman imaginable. And even considered as a god among men, he would say. You'll be a great couple. And a great power couple, he would say. As she would say this. I mean, I could see that, but she would say, as she would say this, I meant he. What exactly, he would say? As she would say this. I'll do it, but, well, he'll still be hurting, she would say. As he would say this. Hurting, you say? As she would say this. Well, yeah. During the beacon attack, his girlfriend was killed, she would say. As he would say this. Perfect, he would say. As she would say this. Wait, what? She would say. As he would say this. There will be a good opportunity for you to basically try and seduce him. I can just imagine it now. As he would start imagining some newspaper headlines saying that, that the 3-eyed demon has finally found love again, or something of that sort. As he would say this. That is quite a great idea. Now, you should be leaving and getting ready for the little party, he would say. After all, I made your singing voice to be in tip-top shape, he would say. As after saying that, she would start leaving. As he would say this. Now, I just need to find that so-called 3-eyed demon. I've been wanting to meet him, though. I heard he's quite powerful, especially with his semblance. I even heard from Winter that he's probably even stronger than her, which is quite a surprising thing, to say the least, he would say. As after saying that, we go to another, a few minutes later, or at least a few hours later. So, as it's finally the day of the fundraiser, as she would start singing, everybody's basically cheering on for Weiss, as everybody's basically cheering on for her, mostly because she's a Schnee. And after, a bit of singing, she would stop and the party would still go on, as everybody is basically having a bit of fun. She would, hear a few people basically saying Vale got it coming a few years ago after all, and something saying, yeah, it's finally time for them to basically know that us, Atlas, is much better, they would say. As one would say this. Yeah, ever since Beacon started becoming a little bit much more accepting of those damn beasts, we decided to basically upgrade ourselves, instead of them just keeping their old ways, they would say. As after hearing that, Weiss would start feeling a little bit sick. As she would overhear a woman would say this. Phil would already got coming a few years ago if that lazy-ass Osmond didn't do anything about it, she would say. Too bad that almost all of those beasts didn't get enslaved. I wouldn't have, I could have had something a little bit more fun to use, she would say. As after hearing that, Weiss would say this. What did you say? What did you say? She would say. As the woman would say this. Well, after all, she would say, as she would start looking at, Weiss, as she would say this. At least another pathetic little faunus, a damn little faunus, respecter, she would say. It's super pathetic how, Vale just went on with nothing more than a whimper, she would say. As after saying that, she would become a little bit mad. As one of her glyphs would start coming out of nowhere. As after doing so, a Grim would basically come out, and this Grim would resemble a boar tusk, as everybody would just be surprised. As the boar tusk would start charging towards her, as Weiss would say this. No, she would say. As the woman would say this. Get away from me, she would say. As the boar tusk was getting ready to, slam into her, Ironwood would basically jump in and would start shooting the thing down. As after doing so, everybody would just stop and look at her, as after doing so, the party would be ended. So, a few minutes later, wait for a second. So, after the party, we currently see Weiss being scolded by Juskus, as Juskus would say this. You absolute imbecile, he would say. You, you basically almost tried to kill that woman. You know how much money that basically cost me, he would say. As after saying that, Weiss would just be silent. As Justice would say this. You really are a disgrace, he would say. As after saying that, she would say this. Really? As after saying that, he would say this. Yeah. Why exactly? Oh yeah, you basically cost a bit of our money to basically go to waste, he would say. And you know how much that would cost? A lot, he would say. As after saying that, she would say this. But you just married into the family, she would say. As after hearing that, he would just be a little bit pissed. As he would say this. What did you say, young woman, he would say. As after saying that, saying so, he would slap Weiss in the face, causing her to look in the mirror. Seeing the red mark on her face, she would just be surprised. As Justice would say this. You worthless daughter of mine, he would say. Actually, you're not even a daughter of mine anymore. You're disowned, he would say. As after saying that, she would be shocked. As he would say this. Well, it seems that I'm going to be changing my heirs today, he would say. As he would say this. Well, I'm going to be making, Wheatley the new heir. Unlike you worthless piece of shit of a daughter, he would say. As after saying that, he would start leaving leaving her room. As after saying so, she would just be, really surprised. As she would say this. I'm disowned, she would say. As after saying that, she would start moving around the large, mansion of hers, or used to be, or at least there used to be home. Soon to be, at least. You basically get it. Anyway, continuing on, as we currently see Weiss walking around, as she would see Wheatley, aka the little shitshow that I'm probably gonna kill off very soon. Yeah. Anyway, continuing on. So, as we currently see Wheatley would say this. Oh, hello there, Weiss, she would say. As after saying that, she would say this. What is it, she would say. As she would say this. Oh, I don't know. Maybe like being informed that I'm going to be the new heir to the company, he would say. As she would say this. Leave me alone, she would say. As he would say this. Oh, a bit salty, he would say. As she would just leave and would start moving towards her room once again. After doing so, she would grab her rapier as she would say this. I think it's better than doing nothing, she would say. As she would start training to try and summon out, more of her, summons. As a few hours had gone by, as she would try to summon a much more larger creature. As, while she was doing this, she would hear the door open. As she would look behind her and would see Wheatley. As Wheatley would say this. How interesting, he would say. So you're trying to train your semblance? Don't make me laugh, he would say. As after saying that, she would just ignore him, as he would say this. Come on. I'm going to be, the new, heir to the company. And not only that, I'm able to move around, anywhere, and I mean anywhere, around this world of ours. Unlike you, you're probably going to be stuck here forever tormented by, well, me, he would say, as after laughing a little bit, Weiss would just ignore him, as she would just, try to train a little bit more to try and summon her, new creature or something of that sort. So, after basically just looking at Wheatley with a glare, which kind of terrified the boy, as he would say, I'm leaving, he would say. As after saying that, he would start leaving. As after doing so, she would just continue on trying to summon something. As she would start, training with her semblance a little bit more, as it was almost like completely nighttime now. Maybe 10 to 11 now. As after, the holding up her sword a little bit, as the large glyph would start spinning around, as after doing so, something would come out of it. This something would seem to be a large armored man with a large sword, as she would say this. I did it, she would say. As this thing was the Armored Gigas. Or the Armor Gigas. Or at least I think that's the name, let me just check. As after doing so, the knight would start bowing down to, to Weiss. As she would say this. I actually did it, she would say. As after saying so, she would hear the sound of, the door knocking. As she would say this. Who is it, she would say. As she would hear, well, Clyde, or whatever his name is. As he would say this. Miss Schnee, are you okay? As he would start looking at the, at the Armored Gigas. As he would say this. Oh my god, he would say. She would say this. Well, I just finished summoning it, so... Well, I am sort of fine, she would say. As he would say this. I see. Then... why are you trying to... As she would say this. Hey, Clive? She would say... As he would say this. What is it, Miss Schnee? He would say. As she would say this. Can I... have a favor with you? She would say. As after saying that, she would tell him about something. More specifically, that she's planning to leave. After hearing this, he would say this. I'll do anything for you. After all, unlike your father, you're actually a nice person, he would say. As he would say this, thank you, Clive, she would say. As after saying that, she would start packing her bags. Or at least packing her suitcase. As after doing so, she would say goodbye to Clive. But while she was leaving, she would overhear something. Sorry about that, be there for a second. As we would hear Juska saying, "Are you serious?" he would say. As he would say that, specifically General Ironwood, which apparently he was back. As he would say this. Like I was saying, we're gonna be closing Atlas's borders. Especially with the whole incident back in Vale. Trust me, it will be your own good, he would say. As he would say this. But my money, he would say. As he would say this. What about the money? Do you want the rest of, the people there, down there, basically getting slaughtered, he would say? As he would just shut up. As after saying so, he would say this. Good, she would say. As after saying that, she would start, getting ready to leave. As she would pass by a disguised Weiss. As Weiss would start leaving, trying to get out of, getting out of the area. And after hearing that apparently Atlas's borders are going to be closed soon, she would start running off to go as fast as she can to go leave Atlas. As after, doing so, wait for a second. As after doing so, she would start going towards a little, a little library-like area. As after doing so, she would say this. Clive, try and open that door, she would say. As she would say this, sure, Miss Weiss, he would say. As after saying that, he would, grab something out of nowhere and would pull on it. And after doing so, one of the book covers would start, opening. As after doing so, he would say this. This is your exit, he would say. As after saying that, Weiss would basically, run up to him as she would hug him. As she would say this. Goodbye, Clive, she would say. As he would say this. Goodbye, Miss Schnee, he would say. As she would say this. Don't call me Schnee anymore. Call me Weiss, she would say. As after saying that, he would say this. Very well, he would say. As after saying that, she would say goodbye to Clive as she would start leaving to go to, a large shipyard. As after doing so, she would aboard on the Atlas ship going to Mistral. As she would say this. I hope they can see you. Izuku, she would say. Even though it's probably going to Mistral and not, where, where, Ruby and also Yang's home is, as she would say this. But, I'll at least try to find you. At least try to find you, at least, she would say. I hope we can meet each other. As after saying that, she would start clenching on her, chest. As she would say this. I hope to see the rest of you, too. Ruby, Yang, and Weiss. saying that, the camera would pan out as it would start, transporting us to another perspective. As we currently see Blake, it was currently in the morning as she was currently on a ship. As she would say this. Buy a ribbon, she would say, as after saying that, we would all see that instead of wearing her usual ribbon, instead, she was, letting her, ears out. As after throwing the, piece of cloth that was her ribbon, she would say this. She would just sigh, as she would look over, as she would say this. Just a few more days to go back home, she would say. As after saying that, she would decide to sleep somewhere else. More specifically, in one of the docks. Not really docks, but more like, in one of the storage areas. As after doing so, she would instantly fall asleep. A few minutes had gone by as she would say this. Much better, she would say. As after saying that, she would start getting ready to, get out of the ship. Or not really get out of the ship, but more like go outside. As before she can, she would hear a massive scream. As after looking back, she would see, a large dragon-like Grim, which resembles a Chinese-type dragon, as this dragon was, or at least this type of Grim, was called a Sea Fei Long. As after the, large dragon-like Grim basically appeared, it would start, attacking Blake, as she would start using her gamble shroud to start slashing at it. But she was sort of too weak to basically fight it, as she would say this. Shit, she would say, as she would start using her gamble shroud to basically, hook onto it, as she would start riding it like a, like a freaking, Bonk and Bronco. As the, Sea Fei Long would start growing out wings, as it would start trying to, basically get Blake off it, as after a while, she would start, using her, using her katana end of her, her gamble shroud, as she would basically stab it onto the Grim's, back, as the Grim would basically shout out in pain, as he would try to, shake him off even more. But before she can, or at least before it can, a blast would basically, happen, or at least something would blast towards it, as it would seem to be a bullet, as the bullet would stab through, the, Sea Fei Long, as the Fei Long would scream out, as she would basically, jump out of the way, jump out of the air, as she would basically land on the ship once again, as some of the crew are basically, telling her to basically get ready in case of, the Sea Fei Long basically deciding to basically attack once again. As after, seeing, what happened, she would look over and would see the person who actually, shot that blast. And this person was Star Wukong, which is basically just like, Sun Wukong, or Star Wukong, or you basically get it from, RWBY, but instead, she's gender bent. Yeah, you might have forgotten her. I even forgotten her. But either way, as after, seeing that, both Blake and Star would start looking at each other, as Star would say this. Been a while, she would say, as she would say this. Yeah, been a while, she would say. As after saying that, both of them would start getting ready their weapons, as she would say this. So, you ready? As she would say this. As I'll ever be, she would say, as they would start fighting the large, the large-ass Sea Fei Long. As after, a bit of fighting and a bit of struggling, and also, for her, aka, Star, she would start using her semblance, which was, the clone thing, as she would start beating on the thing with her clones. As after a while, Blake would basically cut off the head of the Sea Fei Long, as it would be defeated. As after doing so, night would would instantly fall, as the crew would basically, would thank both of them. So, after doing so, they would start getting a little feast, as one of them would say this. So, you are perhaps, Blake from Team RWBY by any chance, he would say, as she would say this. Wait, how did you, as he would say this. Well, you see, my daughter is actually a big fan of yours, mostly because you're flawless, he would say, as she would say this. Wait, really? As she would say this. I meant you. Yeah. look, he would say. As after saying that, she would look behind him and would see a large reptile-like tail. As he would say this, I'm an alligator, you see. Actually, an alligator faunus. And my daughter, well, she's also a faunus. But her mother is not. After all, she's just a regular old human, you would say. As one would say this, yeah. Even though she was a bit apprehensive with you at first, but ever since you've grown on her, well, let's just say she's been, having a bit of fun with you, he would say, as he would see this. Yeah, even though she's a regular old human, she still has the stamina enough to basically cause me to, fall asleep instantly, he would say. As one would say this. Yeah, we don't really want to talk about your whole, sex life or whatever, he would say. As after saying that, he would say this. Whatever, he would say. As after saying that, after eating dinner, they would start, leaving to go back to their work. And as their blinking sun, or, star, wait for a second. As after, after they basically left, one of them would say this, specifically sun, or star. Hey, Blake? So, are you planning to, try and fight off the White Fang by yourself, she would say? As Blake would say this. Well, no, she would say. And, by the way, why did you even follow me, she would say. As she would say this. Well, because we're, friends. And friends always stick together. And not only that, ever since, the fall of Beacon, I sort of thought that you were going to, at least try and fight the White Fang, and probably even get revenge. As after saying that, she would say this. Probably not for me, she would say. And if you're wondering, no, I'm planning to go back home. I want to see my family, my family again, she would say. As she would say this. Oh, really, she would say? As she would say this. Yeah. I just hope Father doesn't know that I currently, have somebody right now, she would say, in mind, she would say. As, Star would say this. You mean the Deku, she would say? As she would say this. Wait, how did you? As she would say this. Well, it was pretty obvious, she would say. And I also kind of like him, she would say. As she would say this. I see, she would say. As he would say this. I'm a chief. Yeah, even though he's a bit, well, let's just say dense, but still, he's quite a nice guy. And especially with his handsome face, she would say. As after saying that, Blake would say this. Alright, can you please shut up, she would say. As she would say this. Fine, she would say. Wait for a second. As after saying that, he would say this. So, hey, Blake, she would say. As she would say this. Yeah, she would say. As she would say this. So, where is your home exactly? As she would say this. Menagerie, she would say. As she would say this. Wait, you're from the, from Menagerie, she would say? As she would say this. Yeah. By the way, try not to cause any trouble for me. She would say. As she would say this. Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, I've never really gone to Menagerie before. I heard it's basically a utopia for us pharmacists, she would say. As she would say this. Yeah. But it can also be a double-edged sword. Especially with some of the poachers, she would say. As she would say this. Oh. Yeah. Atlas, she would say. As after saying that, we're gonna be sort of ending this episode right off here. So, yeah. So, I hope you liked the video. Comment and subscribe. And I hope to see you guys next time. Bye-bye!